This is another day of Soul School. How people feeling? You can let me know if you connect through Zoom. Alex, you'll post on my page the address on my live thing.
Yeah, are you live? You're live on Facebook now?
Yeah, on my page.
Okay, cool. So for anybody that's watching there, I'll post it in about 30 seconds. Let me just try get on your page.
Excellent. So, basically, um, we've spoken a lot about different cultural issues, different cultural concepts that have their roots in West and Central Africa. Um, one of the really important issues that I try to work with is the idea of finding options other than supremacy to frame your worldview. You know, I feel that when you look at African American culture, um, you see a persistence and a resilience that's due to a shared worldview amongst the sub-Saharan Africans that went through the transatlantic slave trade. And that shared worldview um, can be summed up in a couple of sayings that we have. You know, God is good all the time. It's all good. You know, um, these sayings express an idea that reality is inherently good because it is created by goodness. It is created by a completely good being. That being is its benevolence greatly outweighs um any concept of evil or hate, even in the face of the tragedy of slavery and the tragedy of being treated like like possessions or like animals rather than being treated as part of the human family. African Americans still treated their so-called masters. They still treated people as people. They they were able to find their humanity in a place where a lot of us assume it's all right to lose our humanity. You know, so many of our movies are about people striking out in violence because they've been enslaved and, you know, destroying the alien world because it had the nerve to try to enslave humanity. You know what I'm saying? The African American community has consistently looked at violence, looked at oppression, and tried to heal it by treating a human being like a human being, something to be cared for, something to be respected, something to be loved. And that there is no horror that's great enough to make you want to go into people's houses and rip their children from their um, chest and kill their children and kill. That is the thing I'm proudest of about African American culture, is that it didn't produce the type of riots, the type of violent insurgencies, the type of terrorism and bombing and no, it definitely experienced that type of terrorism. It definitely um, resisted that type of violence. But very few times do we go out and attack European Americans for all of the attacks that have been done upon us. Now, I say us, but I recognize, even though I'm not recognized as a European American, I am European American. I speak a European language. There's very little about my upbringing other than the African retentions in my family that is not European. You know what I'm saying? I have European blood. I'm part Irish, I'm part Scottish, you know. I am not speaking from a point of purity. I'm speaking as someone who has both cultures and both bloods mixed in my being. And I would want to honor both. However, the one that I celebrate, the one that I feel demonstrated in history, the role that I would like to play, the role that I feel is the human condition, the role that I feel expresses the kind of character and morals that I would want to express. That's the African American soul. And that's what Soul School is about. It's about teaching the African American soul, teaching that the African American soul is cool, but also is academic. It has a history. It has abstract concepts that rival our modern perspectives on the very nature of reality. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's really important to pay close attention to this fundamental difference that I'm saying. And the thing is don't get me wrong, there are aspects of Yoruba culture that was very supremacist. You know, supremacy is not a European invention. Supremacy, like all of the aspects of human culture, expressed itself in Africa way before it expressed itself in Europe. The question is, how do you respond to supremacy? How do you resist supremacy? How do you resist when somebody calls you a slave? Well, in West Africa, there's the story of Chango. Chango was an emperor. He was the Alafin of the Oyo Empire. He and his family, like his brother, as I've said before, was Bablu Aye. And I think I've said this patiki before, where Chango goes to the marketplace and he's going to buy a slave. The slave he buys is Oya. He sees her and he decides he wants to buy her. As he goes to her owner and tries to arrange the sale, Oya speaks up and says, "So you think you can buy me? Man, you don't even own your own head. You're gonna have to return your own head to its true owner. So what makes you think you can own my head?" My great-grandma also said a similar thing to me. My great-grandma said to me, you know, when you grow up and go to school, they're gonna tell you that your people were slaves. And that's simply not true. Your people were never slaves. Your people were treated as slaves. You know what I'm saying? Well, Oya is the Orisha of freedom. She is the air itself. She is that which cannot be bound. She is the Statue of Liberty, which was put up for that reason, like I've said in past classes. But what Oya represents to me, as being a child of lightning, a child of change, what Oya represents is the argument that always frees the slaves. You know, that always frees the slaves. The argument of the human condition, the argument of, can't you see me as being just like you? can we really own each other when we are the same expression? All of these arguments, all of these rationales are a type of conceptual game, a way of trying to speak to the human condition, trying to speak to your inner soul and ring true to something within you as an individual, but also within you as your community. The reason why racism works is because there's an argument there that rings true in the European American community. In fact, I've met many brothers and sisters that are very upset with their own folks and will call their own folks nigga in not a nice way. They're like, black folk would be all right if it wasn't for these niggas. So that's how true the racism rings, that it even rings true in the people that are receiving it. You know what I'm saying? So what agency do we have as culture soldiers? Well, it's a story that frames Black people that way. It's created, it's fabricated. That's what Chongo was all about. He was about changing the stories, changing the game, you know, with the twins, Ibeji. In Yoruba land, they were of the belief, they were of the story. They had the narrative that twin babies were an example of evil. Of course, there was no real concept of evil, but there was a concept called Baruku, which meant, you know, something so wicked that you really wanted to prevent it in any way possible. And sometimes, you know, death is allowed. You could murder someone, you could sacrifice someone just to avoid this wicked thing from happening. You know what I'm saying? So this wicked thing is so wicked that it pushes you to do a wicked thing in order to prevent the wickedness of that. You know, just like the type of thinking, the type of game that abortion zealots have, where they feel that it is worth killing the doctor or killing the baby just to prevent people from doing abortions. It's worth doing a wicked thing in order to stop the wicked thing. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, our whole system is based around that type of thinking, which I don't know. I've never seen any wicked thing stop wicked things from happening. In fact, it just makes more wicked things, you know? Well, Chongo saw this situation where twins were being killed, being sacrificed because they were the expression of this wickedness. So he changed the narrative. He sculpted a new story. He made a new game. And instead of twins representing something that had gone wrong, something that might go wrong in the future, something that might be dangerous for society, he made a story about twins being a soul that was so deeply blessed, a soul that was so profound, a soul that was so close to God that it couldn't be held in one vessel. Obatala had to create two heads to hold that soul. It just had to be, because they were such deep blessings. Obatala had to sculpt two vessels of clay for that soul to reside in. And by having twins, you are bringing that creativity and that excess into society, that doubling, that ability to multiply into society. And just by changing the story, the mother of twins went from being reviled and hated, twins went from being killed and sacrificed, to being celebrated in the street. People would throw money at the mother of twins, happy to see her having these twins. And amongst the Yoruba, they have more twins than anybody else on earth for some strange reason. But they do still to this day worship and praise and reward people for having twins. Twins are a holy expression, an angelic expression of Chango. Now, in this time of the COVID virus, we're all looking for fact-based issues. Fact-based issues are speculation until we see all of the evidence of what is actually going on. Now, you know, speculation can lead you to make assumptions that could be devastating. When African Americans thought that, look at this, only light-skinned people, only, you know, Asians and Europeans are getting sick. Maybe dark-skinned people don't get corona. Now, that was based on evidence, right? It was fact-based. At that time, there was very few people of color suffering from coronavirus. As the situation has developed, we realized that that was a misconception. It was an early sample of what ended up being a completely different situation where, in fact, people of color, whether due to the virus or due to segregation and the weakness of hospitals in areas where people of color live, which are usually economically and socially marginalized and medically marginalized as well, we suffer much more profoundly from the virus than other communities. So, you know, from my perspective, no matter what you choose, it's a bet. It's a speculation. You know, as critical as people are of Trump, he speculated that this virus wasn't going to come around, so he could make all those cuts and move that money to what he felt was more deserving. That's sad. As a people, we depend on the government to make those sacrifices, to have those reserves, regardless of whether the perceived disaster happens or not. You know, we just want to be prepared. But, you know, Reagan famously said, the scariest thing that you can hear is, "Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help." That has been the Republican doctrine since the 80s, that the government is not worthy of money because it'll just use the money to police you and make horrible mistakes that will endanger you, that you should not trust the government. And I can understand that as an African American. That's a very powerful story. That's a very powerful narrative. That's a narrative that makes me want to strangle the government, especially as an African American, since there was one time that the government perceived me as a possession rather than a human being. You know what I'm saying? So there's a great deal of reason for me not to trust the government. However, we form a government as a society to protect us as a whole. And if we have no faith in each other, if we have no trust in each other, that right there is the beginning of the breakdown of government and society and our whole way of life. It's only through trusting one another and having narratives in which we can build that trust, having narratives in which we are willing to make sacrifices for major occurrences like this. It's a difficult thing, fighting the concepts of supremacy and how they damage our community. And I feel that particularly as culture soldiers, we have to really look critically at the narratives that we take for granted, and definitely look strongly at the narratives that are pushed at us, and recognize that we have options of seeing things outside the box and creating narratives that are just as persuading, that lead towards a completely different perceived preference, a completely different outcome, a completely different application of resources and focus, just based on a story. Yes, it's a story, it's a fact-based story, but it's an interpretation of those facts. What really is of the most importance is what that interpretation of the facts generates. I don't want to hide the facts from someone, but I want to interpret the facts in such a way that they're not going to jump into the usual stereotypical narrative of those facts. Yes, the virus, the coronavirus, came from China. Absolutely, it came from China. You know what I'm saying? But to call it the Chinese virus, you know it instigates people's anger and tension and willingness to conflate a people with a disease, and that people deliberately are, through some irresponsibility, are responsible for the disease. You know, this is the reason why we call the Spanish flu. It probably began in the United States, but our news system wanted to blame the Spanish for it. You know what I'm saying? The fact of the matter is that this is the Wuhan virus. We know specifically what location it came from, Wuhan. So if you were going to be all scientific and whatnot, you would call it the Wuhan virus. And it avoids the narrative of Chinese being responsible for this virus. You know what I'm saying? We as a people have seen over and over how stories, how perceptions, how rationale, how morals can be considered to be facts and so persuasive that it pushes people to do things that actually end up going against their own intent. You know what I'm saying? Against their own goals. I want to remind people, anyone watching on Facebook, please join us on Zoom. I would love to be able to have an actual conversation with you. I would love to hear your comments, your questions. The Zoom link is right below, and you can download the app if you don't have it and join in the conference call. I'd ask you to keep your mic on mute unless you actually have something that you'd like to share, a comment or a question. I want it to be a group conversation. I want everybody to feel comfortable just, you know, stepping up and saying what they've got to say. But yeah, Soul School is not only about learning about Western Central African culture, but looking at Western Central African culture as an example of how to change the game. Chere, which is again Yoruba. Che means to do, or to play, or to make. And Ray means game. Game like creative goodness, like something that makes you happy, something that's blissful. And in Yoruba land, when they do a chere, or in Cuba, when they do a chere, or in New York, when they do a chere, they are making art, making a narrative, making an expression that celebrates the story of Orisha, that celebrates the forces of nature, and helps humanity to understand that There are some things that happen with us as individuals, with our communities, with our families. There are things that happen that are beyond us as individuals to make or to stop. That these forces are older than us, and they have been creating our expression before we were born. That instead of blaming the Chinese, or instead of blaming the wet bar, or the fact that people eat bats, or the fact that people eat swine, or instead of blaming things on people and their actions, you start to recognize Babalu Aye as an angel, and you recognize that no matter what we do as a people, viruses are something that moves along the side of all life on Earth. Viruses have been here since we were only single-cell animals, and have woven themselves and helped sculpt every multicellular animal that walks the earth. Viruses are not something to be reviled and hated and eradicated. There's something to be understood. Yes, there is sacrifice involved in working with the angels, but that sacrifice is something that we and our human condition are willing to face. We're willing to send our first responders to help save as many people and protect as many people through this initiation of Babalu Aye as possible. It is very important to us that everybody survives this new virus and goes through this initiation that this new virus is putting us through. And to me, the idea of a virus of this kind of danger, you know, almost maybe 1% of the population will be killed from this virus. It's still 1%. And it's still a new virus for the first time in 100 years. Yes, the sacrifices are bad. But in the scheme of things, we've cost each other more over the last 11 years of war for no damn reason in Afghanistan and Iraq that have not even come near fulfilling any goal that anybody really wanted. And we sacrificed all that energy, all that money, all those lives. I think that the lessons that coronavirus are teaching us are just as powerful as the lessons of organized violence that we adhere to. And both of these lessons are not being taught to us by a Chinese people that spread the coronavirus, or by a militant American government that spreads war all around the world. Nah, it's by angels. Ogun found an opportunity in the United States to express the violence and sacrifice that Ogun has always demanded from humanity. If we do not sculpt our narratives, if we do not sculpt our worldviews in a way that disarms Ogun, Ogun will always march us into war. And the same with Babalu Aye. As long as we don't learn to respect Babalu, as long as we fear Babalu and panic over Babalu, Babalu will always be able to control our economy. But on the other hand, if we disrespect Babalu by ignoring Babalu and not thinking Babalu will ever attack us or attack me personally, you're in the danger of being put through an initiation by Babalu that you might not survive. because you didn't believe it wasn't okay for you to hang out with your friends during a pandemic. You know what I'm saying? All I'm trying to say is that we already have these very personal relationships with the angels. Just because they don't walk around amongst us and fly around on wings and do supernatural miracles, they are expressed by us and expressed by the life all around us and expressed by the very matter we're made of, by the very energies that sculpt us and sculpt our experience. So to me, one of the powerful issues of Orisha is how it changes the narrative of blame, of responsibility, how it changes the narrative of punishment and reward, how it changes the narrative of risk, how it changes the narrative of hate and xenophobia. You know, those are the narratives that I want to confront. Those are the narratives that I feel are a danger no matter which culture you're in. Whether you are the Chinese looking at the Uyghurs and the Tibetans and feeling your culture is more advanced and they will be better if they give up their culture and embrace yours. To me, that is just as wicked as in Saudi Arabia, where they kill you for being gay, or they stone you because you slept with somebody else's wife. You know, to be killed over something that's not only not killing anybody, but not even victimizing anybody. You know what I'm saying? As long as the wife wasn't raped, as long as everybody agreed, they should have let the husband know, but the culture won't allow that. The fact of the matter is that people should be free. They don't need to be coerced by any laws or rules. And all this coercion isn't protecting anybody. Making your daughter wear a hijab isn't protecting her. It's just making men feel that they have the right to attack any woman who doesn't wear a hijab. In any case, I am really proposing these ideas in the hope that all of you creative minds out there could look at how our narratives, look at how our stories, look at how we interpret our fact-based world, our communal world, look at how our interpretations of those facts actually push us to do things that go against the goals that we all set out commonly as the human condition. You know what I'm saying? I feel that one of the saddest things is that we as culture soldiers feel the only way to get somebody to do something is by saying, oh, this is the right thing to do. And the only way to stop someone from doing something is to say, this is the wrong thing to do. You know what I'm saying? I want to know, what is your worldview? What is the reason why you're saying it's wrong for me to, light up a joint? You know what I'm saying? Is it because I'm hurting you by lighting a joint? Is it because I'm hurting you by smoking a cigarette? My secondhand smoke is hurting you so much that you feel you have to police me? At what point do we police each other? Why do we police each other? What are we trying to get out of it? If all you're trying to do is help somebody get to something that should be their goal, well then, if it's their goal, they should already want to learn what you got to say. But most of the time, you're not teaching them anything they need to learn. Oh, you're fat. You should stop eating. Oh, you're fat. You should eat a diet. Oh, you're fat. You should become a vegetarian. All of the time, blaming you for being fat and acting as if fat is something less than any other condition the body can have. I don't think there is anything wrong with bleaching your skin. All across Africa, there are people who bleach their skin. I don't feel there's anything wrong with bleaching your skin. What I feel is wrong is the story, the spin, the game, the concepts that push someone to feel that they would be a better person if they bleach their skin. That pushes society to treat someone with lighter skin nicer than they treat someone with darker skin, providing the impetus, providing the battery in people's backs to go and bleach their skin. I don't think there's anything wrong with them bleaching their skin. However, I do feel there's something wrong with the attitude, the concept that lighter skin is more socially acceptable. Lighter skin offers you more social rewards. But as much as I'm upset with that narrative, I have to acknowledge it is the truth. Lighter skin does give you social acceptance. Lighter skin does open doors for you, even amongst people who are dark skinned. Is that something that we can build a story around, a narrative around that flips that over, that changes that? I've seen sisters looking at these Vogue magazines and looking at these skinny figured women who are so skinny, they can't even have a period. They can't even be fertile women because they don't have enough fat in their body to produce the enzymes that make them a woman. You know what I'm saying? And yet they're being put up on a pedestal as the ultimate attractive woman. Yo, which came first? The skinny or the narrative? I always feel it's the narrative. I always feel that we place certain figures into a space where people who have diverse values all flatten out and choose one value rather than the diverse values that really are there. I feel that there are guys that are really attracted to heavy-set sisters. I feel that there are guys that are really attracted to chubby Asian women. I feel that there are guys that are really attracted to heroin addicts, you know, looking just thin and sick. But there's also guys who are attracted to healthy jock straps that are strong enough to bench press them. But all of those different attitudes, all of those different value systems are too complicated for our marketers to use as a means to sway you to buy their product. So they try to move all of it to one thing so that we all, regardless of our individual tastes, feel pressured to believe that only one thing is valuable. And therefore, the guy who really would like to date a thick sister ends up going out with a thin blonde girl because that's the only way that he could be around his friends and be treated like he's with a valuable woman. If he got the thick sister, they'd look at him like, what's wrong with you? Why are you with that? They'd look down on him. You know what I'm saying? These kinds of narratives are too constraining for us in the human condition. We have to find narratives that free all of those little idiosyncratic value systems that we all have as individuals and allow them to really flourish. Because believe me, it is so important that we like different things. It's so important that we have different values. It's so important that I like to smoke reefer and you don't. It's so important that you like to, do crack and I don't. It's so important that last week I liked to do heroin and this week I do not. Not that I got better, not that I quit heroin because I was addicted, but that person last week that liked the heroin changed. And any change is perfect because change is the only thing we get to do. And to judge some changes as being worse and some changes as being better sets us up for half of our changes, making us a loser. Sometimes far more than half. Sometimes there's only one way you could change. And if you don't change that way, you're a loser. You know what I'm saying? I don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a beautiful thing in being a loser. I'm not trying to eradicate the possibility of being a loser. I'm just saying, can we see more beauty in it? You know, Legba is the ultimate loser. You know, all of the racist art of the South, all those Sambos and all those cakewalking Negroes, that's all images of a Legba. You know, a Legba is hated, reviled, and dismissed and laughed at. But that doesn't change the fact that a Legba is the most fundamental angel, is the angel everyone relies on to exist. What's interesting about a feudal society is that the king cannot operate, cannot survive, cannot exist without the slaves. But the slaves can do very well without the king. When we look at this coronavirus, it really exposes that issue. You have a need now that only the most important jobs are actually attended to. And yes, some of those important jobs are people who get paid well, like doctors and police. But so many of those important jobs are jobs that people look down on, jobs that people think are nasty and don't care about. You know what I'm saying? Sanitation, restaurant, working in the grocery, you know, jobs that are supposed to be for teenagers. That's why they only get minimum wage. And yet there are people out here working their 40-hour week, making sure that you have food on your plate. And they were getting paid the least of anybody in society. And they're one of the most valuable. How do we decide who gets paid what? How well would Amazon work without Bezos? How well would Amazon work without a warehouse worker? Which is more important, Bezos or the warehouse workers? The warehouse workers are what make Amazon work. Bezos just provides the framework in which they work and then cracks that whip on them. You know what I'm saying? Basically, Bezos makes Amazon into a jail and he robs all of his so-called employees, his prisoners, his 40-hour-a-week prisoners. He robs them not only of their time, but of their money at billions of dollars a year a clip. Because it's them that's providing the service, not Bezos. But it's all around the narrative. The Republicans have been writing the narrative so beautifully since Reagan. And the culture we have right now is so much based on Reagan's narrative. Trump is a beautiful example of Reagan's, you know, philosophy. What is that philosophy? That government should only benefit the rich. What else could it be? Benefiting the poor people makes welfare queens. It makes people who get used to not having to work. And we all see Trump works so hard. You know what I'm saying? All I'm trying to say is that if you look at the narratives that the Republicans have been pushing since the 1980s, if you look at the narratives that even the Democrats push, you know, I mean, they were on that super predator shit, you know? You know, I mean, the last time we saw, um, 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 well, let's put it like this. The first time we saw the enemy of the people was during Prohibition. In Prohibition, they made a black market. They made a black market because they refused to sell alcohol legally anymore. That refusal to sell alcohol legally opened the door for Ogun, because who's gonna impose that rule? Ogun has to violently impose that rule. But guess what? Since so many people want to drink, you get to have an illegal market. So you have this constant friction between the police and now the liquor police, which were the gangs, you know? Just like where I grew up in Bushwick, there were reefer police and cocaine police and crack police. Those were the dealers. That's why they had guns. That's why they were involved in violence, because there was no social regulation of that market. So you had to regulate it yourself. You had to bring your own Ogun. You couldn't depend on calling up police to protect your money, to protect your store, your corner. You know what I'm saying? Just like during Prohibition, you know? You don't want to get into a fight with police, but another store trying to take your store, another store trying to take your product or sell your product, you throw your police on them, you throw your goons on them. That's what Ogun does. He loves black markets. It's always a reason for violence. And it is just the narratives that think that they can stop people from buying and selling stuff. Narratives like Bloomberg, where he says, "Oh, cigarettes are bad for you, so therefore I, a billionaire, can put a 300, 400% tax on this herb that people so desperately want that they would give up food just to have cigarettes." You know what I'm saying? That's how valuable that is to people who have far less money than the billionaire Bloomberg and who have a history of being enslaved to produce just this herb that you are now taxing at that rate, when this country fought for its freedom because tea was taxed, and the tax on tea wasn't even 400%. And you're a Republican and supposed to be against taxes, but you go ahead and tax it like that and think there's not going to be any consequences from it. You think that your goal of keeping poor black people from smoking cigarettes because they really can't afford to get sick anyway, because we don't want to pay to care for them. You know what I'm saying? So your goal of getting black people not to smoke cigarettes by having them be $14 a motherfucking pack. Of course cats are gonna skip a state over. I mean, come on. Biggie talked about. I found out that a 20 goes for a nickel down south. You know, anybody could recognize that, yo, if you're going to pass laws, rules and regulations that outlaw a product that is available and you can get cheaper somewhere else, you're gonna undercut the government, undercut that tax and sell that shit. And that's what happened. You know what I'm saying? That's what happened. Eric Garner was out there selling cigarettes, selling tobacco, selling herbs. And because of that fucking billionaire's tax, him and so many like him were harassed, some of them to death. Like, God bless Eric Garner. And that's just setting out Ogun and Alegba over a narrative, over a story someone tells you. A story someone tells you that gives you a knee-jerk reaction to write a law without understanding the consequences of your good intentions, without understanding the consequences of your knowledge of evil, your knowledge that cigarettes is bad, your knowledge that reefer is bad, your knowledge that to be a heroin addict, to be a coke addict, to be a meth addict is bad. You're so knowledgeable about the badness, you don't see the badness you're doing in writing laws against it. You gotta leave people free and go after real bad things like violence. Go after real bad terrorism, like the terrorism that provokes European Americans to shoot up African American churches, the terrorism that's responsible for the second worst terrorist attack on this land. Timothy McVeigh blowing up a government building for the same reasons that Trump has blown up our government by eradicating it, cutting it off, or putting people who are directly against the concept of government helping in whatever area it is. You know, DeVos, completely against education, and she is the education secretary. There's very little difference between Trump's attitudes towards government and Timothy McVeigh's attitudes towards government. It's just that Timothy McVeigh made an actual bomb in an actual government building, and Trump is just a legislative, policy, executive bomb in our White House, blowing up our government from the inside out based on the same narratives that Reagan introduced in the 80s that are clearly part of McVeigh and the white nationalist movement's arguments, and that go on to be expressed through Trump. So, I mean, yeah, culture soldiers, I am definitely speaking to you about the power of the narrative, the power of the game, the power of the way in which we interpret this communal world of ours to make it seem, to make it appear that there's only one option, or else you're absolutely wrong. There are many options, and all of them should be respected, especially the options that lead to the least violence and the least victimization. I do not want to stop a grown person from doing what they're doing, because just the fact they're doing it might influence a minor. That makes no sense. If a grown person wants to do it, yeah, you may not want to do it, but a grown person wants to do it. You've seen the action and you don't want to do it. Your child will either see the action and not want to do it, or see it and want to do it. You cannot control your child any more than you control the other person, the adult who has chosen to do the thing that you don't want your child to do. These types of arguments, you know, they always bring up the children. Oh, my child's going to smoke reefer. Guess what? Your child's more likely to smoke reefer because it is unregulated out in the streets, out in the black market, than if it were being controlled by adults for adults, with the idea of letting a child get old enough to make the choice for themselves, what they want to do and what they want to be. You know? Denying something, making laws against something, always seems like an easy fix. You know, keep the Chinese from having wet markets, or whatever you call it, where they slaughter exotic animals and whatnot. Yo, the fact of the matter is that everything has a risk. And before you police someone for doing something, you gotta acknowledge how deep is the demand for that thing. You know? We all demand to have gas in our tanks and to be able to go and fly whenever we want to fly. And we all know that there's a human cost for that. That exhaust that we're pumping out into the air has just as much a human cost as any virus that would jump out of cross-species contamination in a wild, in a butcher that's working wild animals. You know what I'm saying? To me, these are all risks and real sacrifices that are going to have to be made, but they can be balanced. You can see that going against it, trying to stop it, can in fact do almost as much damage as what you're trying to prevent. As culture soldiers, I hope that you will resist policing other people, that you will resist trying to make laws, and that you will celebrate ways of being that other people are trying to police. And you will be able to celebrate what other people try to devalue, showing its preciousness in your creative way, so that even those who actually do not value it can at least accept that there are folks that do value it, you know? Yes, anybody saying something here on Zoom? Anybody got something to share, something to say? I'm kind of getting up on my soapbox, you know, I can't help myself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, anybody on Zoom? Who's that there? Who's that there? Is that Malcolm? How you feel, Malcolm?
I'm
Yeah,
feeling good.
yeah. I don't think I've seen you before. You know me?
No, I don't. I read the description and Alex invited me.
Oh, nice looking out, Alex. Getting folks involved. Yeah, we talk about West and Central African culture and try to do cross-cultural criticism, trying to look at spiritual concepts and see how they might be scientific and see how they might be social, and look at social topics and see how they might be scientific and how they might be spiritual, you know, just looking at the interconnectedness of things, and how all of our views on things are based on narratives, based on stories, based on perceived characteristics, and how we value those characteristics or how we don't value those characteristics. You know what I'm saying?
So I was like reflecting on, since you're asking for questions that right now. Well, like you're talking about kind of okay. How can I say this? I guess I was wondering about how those ideas of not, where these things like intersect with like harm. You know what I mean? Like, cause uh, fuck. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. When are these ideas at conflict with like when you're causing harm to someone else? You know what I mean? Because there's so much of what you're talking about that's like not limiting, not basing, not limiting people, not trying to change ideas or change people based on spectrums of good or bad. But then there's also these complex like situations that you're talking about that involve like harm to others, and so there's kind of like this like spiritual ideological kind of like harm, but then there's also the intersection with like violence that.
Well, I tell you, the reason why I call it maintaining perfection is because it's messy. It's a maintenance. Maintaining perfection doesn't mean that crimes against humanity are all good and not evil. That's part of the human condition. We're made to be reviled by somebody that takes advantage of the weak, by somebody who refuses to be cooperative with their community, by somebody that uses violence to instill their will, and whose will is only guided towards their own values and doesn't care about anybody else's. These are things that are in our human condition to have issues about. You know what I'm saying? But also, it's within our human condition to want to treat a person like a possession, to want to make a person do what we want them to do, to want to have a person go through pain for our entertainment. You know what I'm saying? All of these are part of our human condition as well, and we look down on these traits. We see these traits as being something that you should be guilty about, if you express yourself in this way, and you can be embarrassed by that in a context. You know what I'm saying? And you would want to change the narrative so that you do not appear to be acting like that. I feel that in maintaining perfection, you first recognize that all of those negative things that you feel are wrong and people shouldn't do, you know, raping, stealing, killing, hating, you know, for one, you have to recognize that all of us as humanity, we're all here because those are traits we share. Those traits are part of the perfection that makes it possible for us all to exist as we exist. And we are exactly and precisely what we are because of those traits. And there has never been a law, there's never been a police, there's never been any human creation that has stopped those traits from expressing themselves and being. I don't care how many people you put on death row. I don't care how many people you sacrifice to the gods. You don't stop rapists from happening. I don't care how many people you murder in the streets, how many people you lynch, how many people you electrocute on the electric chair. You're not going to stop murder from happening. You know what I'm saying? The question is how do we as a society respond to individuals that do these things that go against the human condition, nonetheless are part of the human condition? Do we respond to them like we respond to a leopard that moves into the village? Do we kill the leopard hoping that another leopard won't come the next day? Do we kill every leopard that moves into the village? Do we go out and seek every leopard until we've eradicated every leopard so every village is safe? That's what I mean about sculpting the narrative. When you sculpt the narrative, you can push people to do genocidal things over the issues that, yes, they go against the human condition. Yes, I don't want my children to be murdered. And yes, I will kill somebody rather than have my child get murdered. But do I really have to kill someone to keep my child from being murdered? And will going to war with somebody really keep my child from being murdered? Will killing all types of people, what is it? Where do you think, what is the equation that's going to give you the security you need? And how much killing you have to do before you get that security? You know what I'm saying? These are all questions that I'm not saying that I can answer, but I'm saying that every time we express an opinion and act on that opinion, we are basically embracing some point on this argument. We're basically saying it's worth it for the sake of us all that this young man at 16 remains a slave of the state and kept like a leopard in a cage for the next 30, 40 years or until he dies. I don't see what a 16-year-old could do that would make you feel that they are such a danger to us all as a people that they have to die in a cage. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I would sacrifice my life to help a stranger avoid that existence. I would think that it would be worth my life in a certain narrative, in a certain way of seeing, to save a 16-year-old from being a slave for the rest of their life. Does that narrative change because I know the person killed someone? What if I knew the person was innocent? How does the narrative change whether they're guilty or innocent when you're talking about a society using its violence and judging an individual and being so clear, so sure of their knowledge of the evil of that individual that they would deny them their God-given rights and put them in jail for the rest of their life? You know what I'm saying? That's why I say maintaining perfection is messy, because then you also have to say, I can't blame the society for doing that. You also have to recognize that them doing that is part of the perfection you're living in. That you, in fact, are doing that. That you are a part of this society. And the society's goodness is sculpted by not only you, but by how you and all of the people around you see the world around you. And that the choices we're making are based not only on us having a good intent, but based on us reaching a good conclusion. Well, from my perspective, the only way that I can justify living in the culture I live in is as it being a ringing example to the culture that I want to live in as to how not to deal with the human condition. Because the human condition does not respond to threats. You cannot reward or punish the human condition. The human condition is going to do what it does. All you can do is decide how you're going to respond. Whether the only way to respond to criminal individuals is by living in a society that does criminal things to those criminal individuals. Is the only way to respond to a criminal country is by doing organized violence in the most criminal way, where you're killing children and mothers and people who have nothing to do with the issues that you are trying to change in the country. How do you deal with a country like Venezuela? Do you starve them out, making the whole world, like Cuba, not be able to do any kind of trade with them? Do you leave them isolated economically to the point where their children are malnourished? I'm sorry, but a lot of the ways in which our culture operates, as we look back on the past and say, oh, those sinful, crazy people who used to do human sacrifice. We are doing human sacrifice. We just build up a story around it that makes us think it's all right. But it is not all right. And it is not having the goals. It is not achieving the things that it says it's going to achieve. They say be tough on crime because that way crime will go down. It wasn't being tough on crime that brought crime down. Being tough on crime was a crime. You know? The war on drugs, I came up with 40 kids my age in the 70s and 80s. 40 young men my age on my block. 4 of us are alive. The war on drugs wiped out my community. And now you have affluent European Americans from affluent suburban and rural neighborhoods flooding into the ghetto, the concentration camp that was supposed to be so horrible that you couldn't even get a loan to fix your house in it. Flooding in there, getting all types of loans, and smoking blunts walking down Bushwick Avenue while police keep it moving. Whereas just 20 years ago, people were being shot regularly over that herb. People were losing their freedom and becoming slaves regularly over that herb. The war on drugs was a war on my community. It was a war on African American communities across the country. The war on drugs did not happen in the suburbs and the affluent neighborhoods that the kids who are flooding these neighborhoods now through gentrification were raised in. Even though their parents, just like me, were doing all the same drugs. As a matter of fact, there were more drugs in the suburban because there was more money. So the war on drugs ended up being an entirely racist, economic, cultural attack expressed by culturally traditional European American supremacists, reflecting, and I always point to this to show that this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't just them trying to make things better, and it did. They went through this with alcohol. They saw what black markets do with alcohol. The mob blew up because they put prohibition down. They talk about being tough on crime. It is bad laws that produce crime. We had legislators that made criminal laws that make crimes out of our citizens for a generation. Instead of recognizing the addiction to heroin as being something that we had to investigate medically, we went to military war with heroin. It would be like arresting everyone that gets coronavirus, putting them in jail and watching them all die together and say it's their fault. But we were willing to accept that simply because we didn't understand heroin, our people, addiction, the whole situation. Addiction, just the word itself, you know, addiction, you know, I mean, basically, the only time that I feel you're a victim of something that you do habitually, the only time you're a victim of something that you do habitually is when it is quickly and powerfully taking away your ability to live. If you are eating peanuts habitually and you develop a peanut allergy that is affecting your body, that's a good reason to give up peanuts. You know what I'm saying? The same goes for any other thing you put in your body. The only argument that you can have with the thing you put in your body is that you know it is the reason why you are suffering some horrible physical detriment. And then, even if you know that that thing is the reason why you're suffering some horrible physical detriment, you should have the right to persist in doing that thing if you feel the sacrifice is worth it. And medicine should not see you as a victim. Medicine should see you as a patient, as someone that, one, you want to give them the freedom if they want to walk away from that habitual thing, but two, you want to give them the freedom to embrace that habitual thing and be as healthy as they can for as long as they can while they're habitually doing it. You know what I'm saying? To me, to just do one side of it, to pretend like it's some sort of evil that humanity likes to get high, is basically criminal and trying to take away a basic freedom, a human conditional freedom from people that don't need it taken away from. Worry about other freedoms like murder and rape. Those are the types of freedoms that we really got to work on trying to get people not to habituate to. You know what I'm saying? At least that's my opinion. That's the story, that's the frame, that's the game that I'm trying to lay out into this. You know, maintain perfection.
Thank you.
Somebody trying to say something?
I was just gonna say thank you for that. That I feel like that. I mean, I that just like really essentialized what you're talking about for me. Just like of this concept of being like not taking away freedoms is really what you're talking about. It's like not the system that we're in now that responds to responds by taking away people's freedoms, by basically committing crimes, committing violence to others instead of working to solve why those things are happening. It's just essentially like a system of enslaving.
Yeah, it's all based on game. It's all based on arguments. It's all based on interpretation. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just looking at the outcomes and recognizing misery happened, but then our medicine for that misery created far more misery than the misery that happened. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just simple observations like that get lost in the mix because of the games of the narrative, of the interpretation. You know what I'm saying? You know, if you start from a point at which it's all good, at which all the players are perfect, at which all the players are doing exactly what they should be doing, it's easy to see which player is leaning on which players, and which guy is the big bully beating people up, and which guy is just trying to survive being who they are. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, in our culture, society is a big bully and beats up people that are no danger to anyone else other than themselves, and beats them up in such a way that they're not even able to get the information that would help them be themselves in a more constructive way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the reason why we have so many overdoses due to these drugs is because people aren't allowed to go and get their drugs distributed by nurses and medical teams that actually know the effects of these drugs and can predict what happens when somebody who has been built up a tolerance but then takes a break for a month or two. When they come back, they have no clue what concentration of drugs they need to use, and the difference can be life and death. If they had access to the education, or access to people with the education that actually had statistics and knew that, you know, statistically speaking, you shouldn't try to do a dose higher than this after being off for this long. You know what I'm saying? You know how many heroin addicts die over that shit? You know? The fact of the matter is that our hatred of stuff, our knowledge of evil of stuff, leaves us happy being ignorant about what that thing is, ignorant about how to live with that thing, ignorant about what would be the real costs of living with that thing freely in our society. You know what I'm saying? You know, we had a time where you could pick up cocaine out of your soft drink at the liquor store because cocaine was considered a type of medicine. You know, so was alcohol. But somehow we developed these narratives. And once again, these narratives, as scientific as they sound, are not scientific. The narrative that getting high is bad for your health is not a scientific narrative and goes against the human condition. All around the world, we've all imparted all types of substances, from mushrooms to herbs to fermented juices, alcohol, everything in order to feel high. So why has our society turned on being high? Our society complains about how many people there are in the world, and yet there are folks who are willing to kill people over abortion and kill people for being gay. What kind of sense does that make? You know what I'm saying? If they're gay, they're not going to add more to the population, which you feel is such a big issue. You know, all I'm trying to say is that all of these opinions, all of these preconceptions, all of these ideas are based on a rationale. That's why they're perfect. That's why they're good. That's why they work. And we as culture soldiers can create competing rationales, can create competing narratives that might pull people to interpreting the world around them differently. So therefore, they might be less likely to perceive a criminal law like a 400% tax on cigarettes done by a white male billionaire in a poor Black city as being not so cool. You know what I'm saying? In any case, let me see here. I'm glad that smoke isn't going through the screen, huh, Effian? Yeah, well, I'm glad the smoke is going through me, Effian. And if the smoke was going through the screen, I mean, you know, you open your window. I mean, granted, the coronavirus has made the air a lot cleaner, but there's still smoke burning. Always a fire burning in the city. Just take it from the burning Bushman of Bushwick. So, yeah, where are we at? It's 7:20. I am asking folks to either questions, some comments, or join us here on Zoom and text, or, well, in Zoom, you could actually join me in the conversation, offer comments, give me questions, whatever makes sense for you all. Yeah. Maintaining perfection.
I guess all of what you were saying is like so loaded for me, especially like I guess my relationship to America and my experiences. I guess I was thinking about like, I guess for me, what I'm like trying to investigate or question is like, where does like spiritual practice and personal practice align? Like, yeah, I guess these violent systems and like having like the kind of similar to what you were saying about like the messiness, but how am I practicing non-attachment to these violent systems of being like, they don't facilitate how I live my life, but how, I guess how community shows up. And I guess it's making me think of like how African culture, it would be, before, I guess, like the community would, and I guess that people would face, like the community would face them all together and like embrace them. So it's making me think of that, but also like making me think of just the algorithm of social media and how this thing of like, I guess like Black people becoming the face of COVID-19 now, is making me think of that, and like how like, yeah, America just tells us like, tells Black people, we don't want you to be safe, we just want you to fear for your lives all the time. And I'm not trying to say it's, I mean, I don't know if it's facts or not, but like, yeah, it's just like astonishing how, yeah, not to sound ignorant, it went from like this thing that came from Asia and then transferred onto like Black people being the face in like urban communities. And yeah, it's making me think of that, how like, how I get sucked into that, but also being like, I guess I'm facilitating a personal practice for me that's kind of like self-healing. Yeah, I guess I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's a lot of important stuff. You see, from my perspective, the whole world, every opinion we've ever heard, every concept we've ever been made to associate with any other concept, everything that we can imagine, all of that exists within us. So, you know, as a Black man, I know I have a stereotypical white male racist in me. I know I have a stereotypical white cis woman in me, a stereotypical white racist woman in me. I also know that I have a stereotypical white male in me that is resisting the stereotypical racist white male in me. The reason why I talk about maintaining perfection is because all of these people that you are seeking to separate yourself from, all these people that you know are harming your sense of self and your value systems when you apply them to the face you see in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? All of those people that challenge the value of the face you see in the mirror, and your hopes to separate yourself from those opinions, from those values, is impossible. I know it's what you want. I know it's what we seek as a people, but we can't separate those opinions. Those opinions are part of us. We generate those opinions, just like you are generating your perception of me right now and your perception of what I'm saying right now. You know what I'm saying? I believe that in order for you to actually be able to look in the mirror and feel that you are valuable and precious, you also have to feel that that white male and his racist arguments are valuable and precious. You also have to feel that that white liberal and their resistance to that racism and their feeling that that racism is wrong is also a part of you, even with your criticisms of even that. You not only are recognizing you being the African that you most want to be, the king and queen that cooperates with their community and has peace and demonstrates all the things that European supremacy doesn't demonstrate. You also have to acknowledge that in your own community, supremacy also reigns. And that all the things that you would hope to be and all the things that you are repulsed by exist right in your community, just like it exists right in theirs, in different ways, in specifically different stereotypical and presumptuous arguments and games. But they are games. None of them really describe reality. And the fact of the matter is that the only reality you know, or I know, or anyone knows, is the reality that only they experience. So no matter who the voice is, they don't know the reality you are experiencing. You are, for all intents and purposes, producing all of us within your mind while you are producing yourself. You are, in a sense, schizophrenic. But the only reason why you have a sense of self is because you're not experiencing what all of the other people that you look at are experiencing. The only time you can know what someone is experiencing is when you look in the mirror. And that's why I say fundamentally, your experience is perfect. That's why I say fundamentally, your experience is personal and made specifically for you. That's why I'm saying fundamentally, whatever is creating you and creating everything you see cares specifically about you and cares specifically about everything you see because everything you see reflects so much of what you are. There's only one thing going on here. It's you on every level, except for when it's not you, but then you don't know about it because it's not you. You get what I'm saying? So as much as I am repulsed by my history, as sick as holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas make me, as I look at these horrendous narratives stretched over this horrendous narrative of history, when I look at the politics and the ideas that have generated so much suffering and so much pain, that it makes me sad to think that it was my soul that created all this nonsense. I try valiantly to create narratives, to create stories, to heal the issues of the stories that I've been taught, and to move us closer towards that African American king and queen that each of us are, with respect for one another and willing to work together, or at least leave each other the freedom to do what makes each of us individually happy without having to call the fucking police on each other. You know what I'm saying? Without having to be violent with each other. Without having to use money as the tool to make someone do something they don't want to do. Because that's about the same as using food as a tool to make someone do something they don't want to do. Yeah, if you starve someone, they'll do whatever you say. Let's see how persuasive you are when everybody's fed and has shelter and has everything that they could need according to the human condition. Then let's see how you persuade somebody to go and do what the fuck you want. You know what I'm saying? You know? We're swimming in ourselves. And I take it personally, some of the shit I'm doing to me. You know? I feel some kind of way about it. So no, I can't run away from it. No, I can't separate myself from it. And I'm trying hard not to make peons of people, but I am so resistant about the way this culture makes peons of all of us. You know what I'm saying? You know? But yeah, I mean, what do you think, man? I mean, you know, how's my response fit to what you were saying about your own journey of dealing with this, you know, rather hostile culture if you're dark-skinned, you know, like I am?
I guess I'm trying to process it. Like, I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I guess, like, well, for me, like, sometimes it just takes time to process. So, yeah, I guess I don't have, like, a response right now.
I can understand. I mean, I really do present these ideas hoping that they are novel to who I'm sharing them with, you know, because...
Yeah, I didn't hear, like, the whole conversation, so I came in, like, pretty late, so...
No, it's all right. Jumping right in is all good. This is what Soul School is about. You know what I'm saying? Being in the moment, that present. You know what I'm saying? The present is rich, and the first example of things is the origin of things, and it's a powerful moment. You know, for when my father was raising me, he said the most beautiful things happened every time I showed you something for the first time. He loved looking in my face and seeing the origination of me recognizing something was sweet, or the origination of me recognizing something was sour. And I tell you, I look at my daughter and I feel the same way. You know, it's whenever you see a person experience something for the first time, it's almost like that thing didn't exist before, and you get to see it originate. You get to see it become born into somebody else's world. And you know, for me, these ideas that I'm sharing with you are ways I've been thinking for a long time, but they're hard to verbalize. You know what I'm saying? And once you kind of verbalize them, they're kind of shocking in a way, because, you know, it goes against our intuitive nature about things. But I feel that it goes against that intuitive nature because it's a different type of game. You know, I feel that there are basic forms, basic fundamental forms of the cultural games we play. And, you know, one form is winner takes all, like the Olympics. You know, you get the gold medal, and maybe you're cool if you're third or second, but we're not going to really try to pay attention to anybody beyond the first three. You know what I'm saying? So are like Monopoly, are like, you know, Skelsey, this game I used to play as a kid, where the winner becomes the killer and kills off all the other players, you know, which is like what happened with the drug game. You know, the kingpin kills off all the other players, or what happens in geopolitical politics. The superpower kills off all the other superpowers. You know what I'm saying? If you have that in your mind, when you set out to do something as a group, you just make the same form, almost instinctually, almost automatically. It's a simple rule. One person's going to win. You know what I'm saying? Whereas then you have the team rules, where my team is good and I'll make a sacrifice for my team, but I'll do whatever against your team. You know what I'm saying? Which creates a different type of organization of society. You know what I'm saying? I'm really hoping that the games that I'm trying to fabricate are win-win games, are games where it isn't about a single best thing that only one thing can prove it to be. It isn't about some perfection that only one person exhibits and nobody else can exhibit that perfection. It isn't about one team is better than another team. It's about a singular entity expressing itself perfectly as all things, all the time. An inescapable ability to constantly change, and every unique change is specifically, precisely what is necessary to maintain perfection. That the only reason why things change is because in order to be perfect, they must change. And that the past is full of all of the perfect changes it takes in order to get to the present. And the future is full of all of the perfect changes we will make in order to create a past. You know what I'm saying? And that it's all very specific and very personal, run by energies with personalities, like Ogun that just ran through my sentence. You know, Ogun is the motor, the heart, the one that opens the road. You know what I'm saying? And it is the battery in all our backs. You know what I'm saying? The reasoning, the rationale to do something. And doing something is maintaining perfection. Doing something is creating change. The reason why something does something to you is so that you can react and do something. It's a call and response situation between you and the creator of you and all of creation. You know what I'm saying? You know? Anybody want to reach out? Anybody want to text on Facebook? Ask a question on Zoom. You know, what's up? How's people popping out there? You know, let me see. Hey, what's up, Tim? How's people? How's people? Anybody want to step up? Anybody? Oh, you know, I could talk about other things. I could talk about the possessive S.
Jill, were you trying to ask a question?
No, I'm trying to. Oh, hold on. You lost me.
There you are. We see you.
Oh, now I'm off mute. Yeah, I was trying to repost this on Facebook. That's
Cool.
why I looked too close to the camera.
Thanks for
Hey, Soul.
Thanks for the support, Jill. Jill Hope, the founder and director, along with her Jill McDermott, along with her husband Hope, the founders and directors of Race Space, under which those schools are happy contributor, you know. I love Gray Space specifically because they're not afraid to engage in the conversation. You know?
Exactly.
That's real value.
Exactly. Well, so how do you have a win-win game?
That's a beautiful question. Well, first off, a win-win game is what's going on. I feel that any description you give when you maintain perfection really applies to everything, because everything is really a reflection of everything. You know what I'm saying? The reason why free association works is because no matter how different the two elements you choose are, they're basically alike in some way that's going to make a certain kind of meaning or sense to you, even if it's poetic, you know? And so I feel that it's easy to look at the world and see something like a simple biological fact, like men produce all this sperm and it's only one sperm that hits the ovum and fertilizes and becomes a human being.
Right.
How do you describe a win-win situation? How do you describe a situation like that where only one sperm becomes a human being as being a win-win situation? That has to be a winner-take-all situation, right?
Right.
I disagree. I feel that you can see it as a win-win situation if you are the sperm. The sperm has no knowledge of the ovum. The sperm has no knowledge that it's even a possibility.
Right.
Imagine we are sperm, billions of us. One of us has the ability to interact with God in a way that would make us godlike. So many religions talk about people in the past who interacted spiritually in such a way that they had special abilities. We all think of this as a myth right now because we see no example of it. But my point is this: to sperm, who supposedly are even less intelligent than us, with no history or myth that they could ever find an ovum and become an embryo and become a new human being, then each and every sperm is a winner just for the fact that they got to be ejaculated. You know what I'm saying?
I guess.
All I'm trying to say is that the very thing that rewarded the sperm that becomes a human being is the very thing that eradicates that sperm. That sperm is no longer a sperm once it hits the ovum.
Right.
So, in a sense, even though it's clear he is the winner, the reward is the same reward. Everyone won the same reward. And that is the most fundamental argument of time and space. Other than even those in some cases, time and space is made in such a way that everything has a point of expression and a point of declination, a point at which you can no longer recognize it as what you were categorizing it as. You know what I'm saying? So a birth and a death. Stars go through that cycle, storms go through that cycle, rocks go through that cycle, computers go through that cycle, everything goes through that cycle. It is the cycle that we all share in common. And it is the one cycle that none of us can even imagine happening to time and space itself. Because so much of us, so many iterations over so much time, we can't even imagine this not continuously producing us. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So really the secret to life is death. It is the only reward. It is the only goal. It is the only necessity. It is the only. There is no option other than death. And there is no reward or punishment other than death. And death isn't something that happens once. Death is what it takes to exist in time and space. Time and space is just like the Hindus say, a constant display of creation and destruction.
Hmm.
In order for us to experience time, every moment has to be eradicated, completely changed, completely torn apart, and absolutely uniquely different in order for the next moment to be.
Wow.
Even the thing that you think is sitting there staying the same, like the Rock of Gibraltar, it's atoms. It's atoms, the thing that it's made of. They're moving at light speed around a little nucleus. Every moment, every atom and everything we've ever experienced changes. Every moment, there is complete and utter change from the last moment. There is nothing that's standing still. Everything is rapidly living, expressing itself, and decaying. If it weren't for that cycle of coming into existence, expressing yourself, and then decaying, there would be no time period. And I really do believe there is no time, to be honest with you, that right now we are all part of a super symmetrical energy field that is completely at peace and never experienced time. But of course we're experiencing time, so I guess it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, peace is rest. Time is about endless desire to destroy and recreate.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
And that is how you get a win-win situation. When you recognize we all have won the same thing, creation, and we're all doing the same thing with that creation, killing time till time kills us. You know what I'm saying?
I guess so. Yeah. Killing time till time kills us.
What other occupation are we involved in?
Well, I guess it's what we do with that time.
Exactly. And that's why my whole argument about it's all good really means something. Because we are so quick to police other people and tell them what's good for their time. We're so quick to please, give people freedom. Each one of us are unique. We're each here in a separate time and place because we have different perspectives about what to do with time and place. And maybe if you let it flow, all our perspectives could build something beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Our body operates like that. If our red blood cells had the same desire as our heart cells, and our heart cells had the same desire as our brain cells, and our brain cells had the same desire as our liver cells, we'd be a mess. It is because they have different desires. It's because they have different preferences. It's because they have different values. It's because they have different morals that they all work together as one. You know what I'm saying?
It says egg. Okay, so there's two.
Okay.
At least that's, I mean, does that make it clear, Jill, about what I'm saying about a win-win situation?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
You know,
Thank
the trick isn't to find out what somebody is saying, whether it's right or wrong.
you. Right.
Because anything anyone says, any religion, any bum, any asshole, any guru, I don't care what it is, everything they say is absolutely true and absolutely applicable to the reality we all share. The question is what's the outcome of those stories? What are you going to do when you believe those stories are true? How are you going to act? What's going to bring you joy and why? How are you going to respond to pain and why? Who do you want to be? What is your character? What is being generated within you that is you? And what is being generated within you that is just reflections of all the people around you? How different are you from those reflections? How can you be social with people who are different from you in reality? How can you be social with people who are different from you, with opinions and ideas and stories that are different from you in your own mind. You know what I'm saying? No matter how much you might hate Hitler and Nazism, we all know what Hitler's arguments were. Those arguments don't exist somewhere in a jail somewhere locked up as being wrong. They exist within us. And we can always reach to those arguments without even knowing it. Reach to arguments like, oh, we don't got to worry about the poor. It's their fault that they're poor. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we don't got to worry about the media. The media is just trying to control us. You know what I'm saying? You know, these arguments, they survive even if the actions and the symbols and the people who rallied around them once are all killed off and all shamed. These arguments still are available, and until people really find a way to give each other freedoms by not imposing these arguments on one another, we'll just continue being changed in the directions we've been changed in up till now. I'm just saying that there's an option. And I feel that as culture soldiers, it's our creative responsibility to find ways of robbing pain, of freeing people from being policed, of stealing from hurt, you know,
Okay.
of giving people their basic needs without being afraid that there'll be nobody to serve you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know, I mean, I don't know, maybe, you know, my morality is idyllic, but I really do feel that the human condition asks us to have, the human condition makes my morality attractive because we each as individuals wish to have freedoms from our societies, from our families, from judgment of being less than worthy, less than valuable, less than perfect. You know what I'm saying? So I'm open to hearing what people think, any questions, statements, whatever. You know, I don't. Oh, somebody came on. Who's trying to talk?
Well, Marco just joined, but I like that. It's helpful the win-win to think about like the black hole that's sucking in energy and also giving energy out, and like a coral reef. Like a coral reef is like growing on top of itself, and it makes the foundation for the rest of it to grow. So it's sort of like, yeah.
Yeah, life is not based on a win-win, and life is based on diversity. You know, if it were win-win, excuse me, life is not based on winner take all. Life is based on win-win. Even the universe, you know, if gravity is the most powerful thing in the universe, and the more mass you gather, the more gravity you have, the more powerful you are. Well, then we should all be one big black hole. You know what I'm saying? Somehow there's a diversity of need. You know, there's the need to bring us together, but then there's always the need to take us apart. And those needs are balanced in such a beautiful way that it's created the entire structure that we're all experiencing, you know? And those needs are balanced that way in life as well. You know, I mean, you have sharks that have basically used the same strategy and replicated themselves through every season of this Earth's history for 350 million years. And then you have us, which completely didn't express ourselves this way until only about 50,000 to 200,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? This shows an amazing amount of resilience, of conservation, of memory, and an amazing amount of novelty, of chance for new things to happen, of freedom, of expression. You know what I'm saying? And you know, to me, that's the game. You know, if you can create a society that operates anything similar to life on any scale, you are creating a very dynamic, efficient society that is working hard to give its individuals as much choice as possible while providing as much security and as much support as possible. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that's the reason why that's part of the human condition, is because that's what we're made of. You know, we're made of cells that are cooperating and have found that balance. Basically, we're made of billions of unique molecules that all have a relationship with each other, where they all are responsive and cooperative and work together to make sure we exist. So why shouldn't we be members of an organism that is cooperative and responsible and make sure that the entirety of life exists, as well as be able to enjoy ourselves in our society and all the comforts and technology that we have? You know what I'm saying? As well as honor our ancestors and honor their traditions and not look at them as being primitive, not look at them as, you know, we look at so-called hunter-gatherer cultures in Africa as if they are something backwards. That's an expression of life, just like the shark. The shark isn't backwards. The shark isn't primitive. The shark is a contemporary expression that has its origin before humanity. It isn't less than before because of that. We aren't better than the shark. We didn't improve. We had the freedom not to be sharks. And this is the precious thing we've created, the society we live in. And this society, just like the shark, is not only responsible for itself, but its role in this interactive game of life. And if we're going to figure out creative ways of living here and sustaining life forms that have been here for millions of years before us, and that in many ways I'm sure we're completely reliant on for our own life and existence, you know what I'm saying? We're going to have to understand ourselves, understand life, understand everything very deeply on a very individual level. I don't care how much the government knows. All of us have to have this information. All of us have to know, you know, what platelets do, what white blood cells do, in a way that is personal and specific to us, and instantly syncretized with our own cultures, with our own histories, with our own knowledges, and not just Latin and Greek culture. Latin and Greek culture is great if you're from Latin or Greece, but we have cultures from all around the world where their traditional thoughts, their traditional ideas, their traditional expressions and descriptions of reality, though they seem spiritual, also are analogous to the scientific bodies of fact that rule our present day culture. You know what I'm saying? You know, Vishnu destroys with one hand and creates with the other hand is the same as what our scientists are now recognizing quantum particles to be. You know what I'm saying? All around the world, people have looked at reality. Even the monks in the Catholic Church that scientists say were so backwards during the Dark Ages, they were arguing about how many angels are on the tip of a pin. But we know how many angels were on the tip of a pin. Billions of iron atoms that were forged in a star that are eternal beings and part of our very physical and conceptual and spiritual characteristics. You know? Yes, there were a whole billions of angels on the tip of the pin, and those monks were discussing a scientific issue about the nature of reality. You know what I'm saying? But we make fun of them and throw them off as though, you know, they were believing in little people on the tip of a pin. You know, they were believing in something that is older than people and creates people, which I would call an angel. You know, or at least has a hand in creating people. I shouldn't say it creates people, but it has a hand in it. All of us have iron in our blood, and it is always our blood that surges us to use iron to pull blood out of other people, you know? Our passionate blood, you know? Always feeding iron. So, yeah, hey, what's up? I see somebody waving. Turn on your mics. Say something.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very well. Who's
You hear
this?
me? Mayra.
Oh, nice to see you.
Yay.
Yay, welcome.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Alex.
Anybody have any comments, questions?
Not yet.
Hey, Fred.
Fred's got questions.
Myra, have you taken this? Have you been in one of these classes before?
No.
Well, you can ask Soul. I don't know
Oh,
what he's been talking about lately. You can ask him anything about molecules and death, and everything has changed. Time doesn't exist without it.
yeah. We have to physically change in order to be in the next moment.
You smoking a joint?
Yeah, life is good. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Oh shit. I want a joint.
Bob Marley calls it Kaya. He has an album called Kaya,
Kaya.
Kaya.
Nice.
And Kaya is a Congo word. It comes from the Republic of Congo. It's a Kikongo word in the Kikongo language. And Kaya means medicine. It means medicine from Gary Funda. Gary Funda is the angel of plants.
Huh.
Yeah.
Different audio.
Yeah, so Bob Marley, you know, Rasta, but nonetheless had that influence of Congo culture in Jamaica, you know, straight resilience through slavery. I always talk about Bob Marley and his relationship with Dada and the Yoruba culture, but he also had Congo influences as well. Are you familiar, the person who just joined us, you're familiar at all with Western Central African culture?
Myra? Myra,
Oh, I guess she's not there, okay.
do you?
I am working on the audio.
I think she's having trouble with the audio and she's trying to fix it.
Okay.
No, I think it works now. I think it's better now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Saul had a question for you.
What is the question?
Yeah, I was curious whether you knew anything about Western Central African culture.
South African?
West or Central Sub-Saharan African culture.
I went to, I know about East Africa. I went to Uganda.
Yeah, I'm not very fluent in East African cultures.
Yeah, I don't know much about. I went, like, you know, like just south of Morocco. That's as I just saw the Sahara, but I didn't go below it.
Yeah, I know a lot of those communities are home to the present day slaves, you know, because Muslim communities come down from North Africa into East Africa to collect animist nations, peoples as slaves, you know, because they feel Islam allows them the right to do that. Did you ever run into that or hear anything about that out there in East Africa?
No.
Oh, that's curious. Yeah, this thing, Soul School, is really about exploring Sub-Saharan African culture and looking at its contributions to American culture, and also looking at the concepts and ideas that were born out of there, and in some cases retained in African American cultures throughout the Americas. How these ideas could be applied in today's culture war, both for a critical view of the culture war, and also for tools and tactics as to how to, you know, change what we're all trying to change about our culture. So I started off by asking people what their concept of God was. I don't want to put you on the, you know, I don't want to put you on the spotlight, you know, but if you're open to it, I'd be really curious about when you hear the word God, what are your connotations? How do you define God? What do you feel about the concept itself of there being a God, and the definition of that concept, and how your definition may differ from other more traditional ideas about it, or from other cultures, or from your own culture. You know, anything you'd like to say about the concept of God, I'd be open to hearing.
So I grew up an atheist, but I didn't know what that was. I just didn't have any religion or anything. And my mom never told me anything about God or anything. One day I came back from school and I was like, Mom, what's our religion? Like, everybody seems to have one. And she was like, no, we have no. And that was it. She didn't say anything else. And but I had to lie in school. I had to say that I believed in God. And I had to say that I prayed. I had to like make up all these things just to be accepted.
You went to a religious school, or that? What type
No,
of
I mean
school?
because everybody is Catholic in Mexico.
Wow.
If there was like one kid who was like Jehovah Witness, and
Did they make a special concession for the Jehovah Witness? Was he excused?
Yeah, he was allowed to not do the honors to the flag. Like every day we like gather in the patio of the school and we do like this very militaristic thing. We march and stuff, and we like, we go like this for like the flag.
Wow.
And he was allowed to stay in the classroom and not do that.
But you didn't have any such right as an atheist.
No, exactly. No, I just had to lie.
You had to. What do you feel the repercussions would have been if you had said the truth?
Can you say that again?
What do you think the repercussions would have been if you had said the truth, if you had spoken your argument as to why you did not want to be involved?
Like kids in school said that if you weren't baptized, that you had the devil in you. That they were like, yes, babies are born with like little horns, and when they get baptized, the horns get like washed off. So if you weren't baptized, that means that you still have it.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, I'm working on that.
Well, I mean, you laugh, but that's the argument that killed a lot of people. You know, that story, that narrative, that belief system, that knowledge of evil. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, to me, hearing that story and having it being used still to marginalize and hurt people is a real issue for me as a culture soldier. You know what I'm saying? This is for me the reason why I'm talking about Soul School is because, you know, we recognize the tragedy of the past, but to be honest, like I keep saying, the only thing that we get is death. So it's not true there's any victims in the past. They were all rewarded by the only reward you can get. You know what I'm saying? They were all equalized. They were all made perfect by the fact that they aren't here right now. What wasn't made perfect is the arguments that they suffered with, the arguments that caused them pain, the arguments that eradicated so much of our knowledge of ourselves because people were so sure that other people's knowledge had not only had no value, but that it was poisonous. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so for me, you know, I'm not gonna get as upset about the image of Hitler or a swastika as I'm gonna get upset about the arguments that justified what Hitler and the swastika stood for, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I too, in school coming up, was forced to pledge my allegiance to the flag, you know, pledge my allegiance to this fascist society. You know, I mean, we are a neo-fascist society. I know we associate the word fascism with Hitler, but the fact of the matter is that the fasces was something that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were embracing. Our whole federal system is based on the fascistic system of the Roman Empire. We have senators like the Roman Empire had senators because we're based on that system. And that system, the fasces, was a symbol of the state's right to be able to kill the individual. That we as a society know who it is right to kill. That you can be sacrificed in the name of society. You know what I'm saying? And to this day, we are still a fascist country because we do still commit executions. And every execution we commit binds us to that fascistic storyline of the Romans. The same fascistic storyline that prevented you as a child from expressing your individual beliefs while just trying to get an education about the history of humanity, while just trying to get your legacy as a human being. You are being made indoctrinated into a value system and concepts that you as an individual today should be able to be free of, if you choose. If somebody chooses to embrace fascism, that's great. I just hope that there's enough of us that don't, that in a democracy, we can keep fascistic ideas from ruling us. You know what I'm saying? I believe the human condition is behind me on that, you know, but of course it's all politics. It's all about how we as a populace decide these things. But I don't think people are speaking about them in the arena in a way that makes my arguments clear. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do folks get where I'm coming from? Any questions, comments, anything rub you the wrong way? You know, if something rubs you the wrong way, there's a reason for that. You know what I'm saying? You should speak up and try to give voice to it, even if it's hard to find a rationale. You know what I'm saying? Because it isn't a mistake. We're all knowing, all seeing beings in a very real way. There's nothing that I can show you that isn't already present in you. I don't believe that you learn by me putting facts or saying words to you. I believe that the facts and the words only illuminate a knowledge that you already have, a knowledge that you apply and organize those facts and words with. You know what I'm saying? Wow, nobody has any comments? I thought I
I'm still trying to, I was trying to think about what you said 5 minutes ago, and then you go on, and then I'm like, wait, I can't keep up. Wait, what was it 5 minutes ago I was thinking about?
yeah, I do tend to, I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It's great. But it's hard to formulate the question.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Fascism.
I don't know,
and
man.
Romans
You're
and
telling me that facts and words don't matter, and all that matters is the knowledge that you had.
No, I'm
Begin
saying
with.
the only reason why facts and words matter is because of the knowledge you already have, because of the knowledge that's already present within you.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't change.
The only reason why your mother's face was important to you as a baby was because it's part of your human condition, part of your nature, part of your character to be looking for your moms and to appreciate the person who gives care for you in your early moments in this world. You know what I'm saying? All I'm trying to say is this. We're each uniquely different from each other, but we all experience categorically similar events. Those categorically similar events all interact with our soul. And there are things our soul knows that interprets those events that is different from person to person and different from culture to culture. It's a level of language that is even before words. It's it's the reason why a baby, at a certain age can suddenly see. Let me be easy for a second, because I know I go and make a lot of different tangents and a lot of different associations, and I don't really fully explain all the associations that I'm making. I tell you, Jill, I would really appreciate it if you start getting lost somewhere, stop me and ask me about what I just said. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
If something doesn't make sense to you, stop me. Just the same as if something rubs you the wrong way. If something doesn't make sense to you and you just ignore it, it means that.
I'm not ignoring anything.
Well, if it doesn't make sense,
Right.
and you don't ask about it,
Right.
you are kind of ignoring it because
Okay.
you're not finding out about it. You know what I'm saying? You are really focused, and you're focused, and you're focused. I ain't saying you're not focused. I'm
Okay.
just saying that by the reason why I want this to be a conversation, I mean, I could write a book. I don't want to write a book, and I don't want to make a talking head. I don't want to. I want this to be a conversation for the same reason I'm talking to you about it. In conversation, I'm able to hear how your head processes things. I'm able to hear where you're coming from, your experiences. I'm able to hear how things are moving for you, and that makes it easier for me to adjust and speak about things in such a way that may be closer to where you're at. You know what I'm saying?
The fascistic Roman-based government of the United States with senators, I thought I'd heard that part of the formation of our government was based on some Native American governing that they discovered here. And then I was also thinking about Rome and how you had talked previously about Jesus came along and his message was so strong, it kind of started to replace the Caesars and the Roman Empire that had been around so powerful for so long. So then I thought, if we have similar tactics to them, will we go in a similar way? So all that stuff is kind of going through my mind as I'm trying to catch up.
I tell you, I could see a future because of the way we're going right now. Honestly, I could see a future in maybe 400 years where people are devoutly worshiping Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and basically the white liberals like Kennedy and are considered like the Jews are today, and white folk like Reagan are in control of King's identity, and I mean, basically, when you talk about the rollover from the Roman Empire to the Roman Catholic Church, you're talking about a young man, Jesus Christ, who, let's say he was a composite person. He was like a movement, like the hippies or hip hop, It was a generation of Jesuses, you know what I'm saying? And this generation was fighting against the Roman Empire and its power. And how were they fighting against it? They were undermining the value system of Rome, They were not allowing Caesar to be the Almighty. Instead, it was this Jewish God, right? But they also weren't allowing the holy and the rich to have power because this God only appreciates the poor and loves the word of 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 analogies and parables that make those who were last first and make the homeless the lord of the mansion. You know what I'm saying? He was trying to turn the tables in the marketplace. He was speaking about the ideas that were subjugating his people, and he recognized that he couldn't say that Rome was wrong for subjugating his people, but he could say that his people were happy, healthy, and whole, and Rome can't do nothing. And we got to stop paying for the favor of God and recognize that God exists within each of us. And the only thing that is diseased or sick about me is the fact that everybody.
Did
Did we
Soul
all lose
cut out for everyone?
He got frozen.
Soul?
Soul has left the
Oh.
building.
Well, hi, Yanis.
Hold on, let me text him.
Hi, Yanis.
Hi.
Oh, why then? What happened?
Where's Yanis?
The Roman Empire
Hi, Yanis.
stopped him.
Yeah, that was a pretty intense moment.
That's a different baby.
Hold on, let me text him. Soul.
Oh my God.
Still talking.
On your end?
No, just in general.
Probably. I'm telling him to quit the meeting and join again.
Hey. Hi.
Hi, Yanis. Hi, Yanis.
Please.
You're so cute. You're so cute. I thought Soul School was not for kids, but I'm wrong.
What happened to Soul?
I think his internet cut out or something. I just texted him he's frozen and to quit and rejoin. So let's give him like 2 minutes and
Okay.
see if he.
How
Yeah.
does everyone else think? Is it kind of dense? Like a lot to take in? Ira just joined.
Definitely a lot to take in, but it's good. It's pretty awesome.
I started thinking about the cedar trees around the lake, and that they're like sentinels. They're like guards protecting the water. And so within them, they must have fairies or some kind of energy. And Evan Pritchard said they're called land keepers. They're like spirits that stay on Earth and try to guard things. This one means.
Mhm.
How are the trees doing up there?
The trees?
Yeah.
Well, they're good. They got a huge rain today. Lots of rain.
We had a
Apparently there was
storm.
a rainbow
Hey,
over
there
our
she is.
house today.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Mama.
Hi, Mark. Mark.
Hello,
No.
Mama.
Oh my God.
Mama Yana.
Yeah, we had a huge storm here. We lost electricity and the internet, but it's back on now.
Yay.
Alice.
Hey, Nico.
See what Hope's making?
What is it, Nicholas?
We torture our child.
That was a recording from last night.
No, from tonight.
That is playing for everyone.
Wow, Giannis's hair is so long, I don't even recognize him.
Yeah, we have to cut it. It's too long to look like a girl. You look cute.
Good.
He just wants to be on top of me. It's exhausting. Baby, isn't it time to go to bed? Oh, yeah, let's go to bed, okay?
Baby Paul.
Now you've got audience. Yeah, you know very well Mark is watching here. You want to play for Mark? Yanni?
Soul says he's restarting his internet. Just hold tight for 2 minutes.
You can play for
Yanis! 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 Yanis!
Yanis. Yanis. Yanis.
Yanis! 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 Everybody's dancing for you. Yanis! Yanis!
Who's the Yanis fan?
This is on the broadcast.
On YouTube.
Yanis.
Yanis!
Yanis.
Yanis! This content is not for children.
I wasn't thinking. Maybe it is.
What are you building, Hoke?
I'm building a hurdy-gurdy.
Hurdy-gurdy?
What is a hurdy-gurdy?
Oh,
It's gonna look like this.
oh.
Is that the kind of machine that you like wind it up and then like
Yeah.
you let go and it makes music?
Yep.
Oh.
And then it's laser cut out of all these parts.
Oh.
Kind of snap it together. And it's super complicated with all kinds of gears and shit.
Jeez.
Yeah, he's building a 3D puzzle. I'm watching him. It's really complicated.
Ah.
Okay.
Little tiny pieces. Wow. Where's your little tiny pieces? This thing.
Oh yeah, no, I showed.
I know, but still. You have ears. And you have
I want to isolate those people.
tiny things. Tiny things.
That looks complicated.
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, monkey.
Mark, are you back? When did you come back?
We got back from Thailand like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I thought you were still in Thailand.
No, I'm at home. I haven't been seeing anybody. Myra is gone. She escaped.
Where is she, Myra? in New York?
She might have went to Mexico.
Oh, of course.
Ayana.
Hi.
Where are you?
I'm in Mexico.
Oh,
Oh, I don't hear you. Hi, Yanis.
Giannis is too pretty.
yeah.
He's too pretty. It's not fair.
No, he's too cute.
Oh, hold on. I need to do something.
You know how to say hola.
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 Ow. Ow. Don't hit me.
Okay, Soul is back. He should be back. Oh, wait. There is Soul somewhere. Oh, it didn't let you. What the heck?
You failed me for the last time, Romania.
Yeah, I keep hitting admit, but I don't know.
Hit it harder.
Yanaki.
Soul is back.
I don't believe it. Oh, there he is.
Can't hear you though.
All right. I got audio. Here we are. Hey, what's up, Chana?
Hey,
Hey, how y'all feel?
all right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got cut off, y'all. Technical difficulties.
What the fuck, man?
I know that's that bullshit. But I'm back. I'm not on Facebook anymore, though. That I had to give up that. Oh, but yeah, I was talking about the Roman Catholic Church origin, and the origins was very similar to if we had white president. I mean, Constantine was the long line of, he was in the line of Caesar. You know what I'm saying? And Constantine adopted Christianity because it became more popular than the culture that he was using to rule his empire. His empire had so overwhelmingly fell in love with this insurgent, marginalized philosophy that they had to embrace it on a large scale. But to me, the saddest thing about it is that they basically went around the world showing an image of a man that was lynched by his government and told everyone around the world, you can believe this, but if you go up against your government, you'll end up being lynched like like we lynched our God. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
It's like that's how badass we are.
yeah, that's it's a tough statement going around saying that this is God and we lynched him. You know what I'm saying? But that's the reality we were all born into. You know what I'm saying? I mean, these are the stories that sculpt us and sculpt what we think is a hard rock reality when really they're just stories now. I mean, they're stories that had a incredible power on our ancestors, but there are stories all around the world that had an incredible power on our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? And all of those stories may have a different social effect, may give us a different window into policy making, may help us understand more easily how to rob hurt, how to steal from the pain that people experience in our society. You know, I feel as cultural soldiers, it should be our focus to learn about as many cultures as possible and their concepts about natural phenomena, their concepts about morality, their concepts about every academic subject that you have in our universities today through the lens of that ancient or that marginalized historical culture. I feel that that is the only way those cultures are going to truly be able to survive the epic of European supremacy. But I also feel that those readings will give us insight and creative inspiration that we would never have without a diversity of lenses into these academic subjects. You know what I'm saying?
Cool.
You know, I listen to stories like this young lady's who just spoke about going to school and not being able to express her true identity because it was so hated, so loathed, you know? I feel that the schoolyard is a perfect example of where you see the kinds of arguments that make it possible for us to have war flourish. I feel that if you see somebody being made fun of in a schoolyard, you can be sure that in the adult culture, that same person is being marginalized and socially um, alienated. You know what I'm saying? You know, what goes on in school is very much an early expression of what happens in adult life. And the thing that changes isn't so much the targets as the power and the rewards, you know?
The powers and the rewards.
Yeah, I kind of, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jill. What I would have preferred to have said, what I was thinking I was trying to say, but then I got caught up in another thought, was that the same people that are accused for childish reasons in a schoolyard are the same people that get accused for adult complicated reasons as adults. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The same reason why, you elementary kids will run after that one black kid in the neighborhood and throw rocks at them is the same reason why Kenneth Vick was such a good villain for PETA or why talking about super predators was such an obvious idea for white America about, but of course super predators isn't a simple childish thing to say. It's now loaded with all of this scientific and one would assume factual meaning for this opinion. You know what I'm saying? And to me, what I find interesting is that no matter how much we learn, we always end up attacking the same targets,
Right.
as we did when we were children. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we just learn more complicated ways of attacking the kid that we were taught to marginalize. And not only that kid, but the characteristics that kid has that's within all of us. So in order for us to marginalize that kid, we also have to marginalize a part of ourselves and hate on a part of ourselves and police a part of ourselves from acting that way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Alex, how many people stayed on after I messed up?
Everyone.
I think everyone is still here.
Nice, nice. So, I mean, it's 8:40 now. I'm willing to do the last 20 minutes, but it's really got to be a, conversation, speak up, make comments, ask questions, It doesn't matter whether you just got here, I'm open for questions about any issue. I'd like to offer a perspective that perhaps you haven't heard before. I also am very open, if any of you have heard any of the perspectives that I'm offering, I'm very open to you telling me what books you heard it from, what people you heard it from, what culture it reminds you of, because I do reference a lot of West and Central Sub-Saharan culture, but regardless of what culture I reference from the perspective of the souls, which is this whole philosophy about us as a singularity and the structure of our communal mind. So any questions, any comments, any issues?
So I have a observation. It might be off topic, but when you're talking about evil, I was thinking about images that our culture has, and the image of the bat has come up a lot. I just saw a bat yesterday, and the animal. And I think you did a sculpture of a baseball bat with bat wings, and the fact that they're saying the origin of corona is in a bat. So I don't know if you want to talk about that. It seems like maybe even the piece behind you, I don't know, is that yours?
Yeah, so splay, so sax. It's a saxophone split open. It's a saxophone splayed open, because that's what I do. I play the saxophone, the sax, which I equate as myself. I'm both a tool and a weapon. I am a vocalizing instrument. I am the living word. And this sax operates by opening its soul, its expression, its inner mind to the outer world. So splay, so zax. You know what I'm saying? And, all of the different meanings. So to splay open, to play, to be an axe that splays things by splaying itself. You know what I'm saying? To be a sax that's playful, but still a voice of freedom and of conscience. But in any case, the bat in Chinese culture is a very important symbol. I hate the way people think about it in our culture, that they're so poor and desperate that they're forced to eat bats. That's not what's going on in China. They have the richest, most upscale people would love to have bat soup, because bat is a symbol of luck. And you see the bat motif featured in Chinese art, all through its history. It's a very important motif in the abstract figuration of Chinese art. I wish I could show you an image, but if you saw the image of the bat, you'd recognize it's all through Chinese history. And the bat for me as a Yoruba is Oya, and coronavirus is Babuluaye, but it's a particular road of Babuluaye that's closer to Oya, whereas smallpox is a Babuluaye that's closer to the earth, closer to the soil, closer to Onile. Airborne virus, like the flu, it flew, it's a bird, it's Oya.
Oya isn't Oya a consort of Babalue? Oh, there we go. Nice.
Oh, yeah. So you can see some of the more abstract representations of the bat and how common you see that even in Chinese food stores. You'll see that motif, not recognizing that is a symbol of the bat.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So basically, the most dangerous Babluaye is Babluaye in the air. You know, Babluaye partnered with Oya. Oya is the easiest way for Babluaye to the easiest medium for Babluaye to replicate itself, for Babluaye to spread. You know what I'm saying? And usually the only viruses that do that are respiratory viruses, or viruses that not only spread through the air, but one of the first cells they want to get in touch with is something involved in our breathing. You know what I'm saying? And unlike the viruses that are close to the earth, where they want to create pustules, want to create seeds on our body, want to make it like the farmland that we make the earth look into. You know what I'm saying? Basically, you see reflected in both viral symptoms, tit for tat with the medium, with the relationship we as a society, we as the human body, the body of man, our relationship with the air is to, change it. You know what I'm saying? Is to basically change what is necessary for us to live and move it more and more towards something that we have to adapt to. You know what I'm saying? And, the virus could be considered something in helping us to be adapted to that future that we're making happen anyway. Our retribution for what we are doing. I, as a culture soldier, would rather see it as training, as early harsh adaptive environment in order to get us moving in the direction we as humanity have to move biologically in order to survive the climate that we are unavoidably making for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? But, you could see the teacher as a punisher, or as a healer, as an educator, or as a fascist. To me, I'd like to look at these angels as being beneficiary, seeing as that when I look at the life around me, it's had 4 billion years of delicate reproduction with immense diversity and immense retention of species. A species like the horseshoe crab has gone uninterrupted, generation after generation. And it's so different from something like the shark, which also is going uninterrupted. You got to recognize that type of history as being some sort of proof of trust that maybe us as culture soldiers aren't wrong for creating stories in which the very nature of nature is to nature us. You know what I'm saying? Even when it's being difficult and scary. Even when a whole bunch of us die at once, rather than us dying indiscriminately over long periods of time. You know what I'm saying? It's up to us to write these stories that has us as humanity reacting more like adults than like children. And then guess what? Even our children will start to act like adults. And we can keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Any comments? Anything rub anybody the wrong way? Observations, insights? Turn on your mic, get involved. Say your attitude.
Well, I'm still thinking about what what's her name, Maria said about kids being born with horns. you know, that weren't baptized or something to that effect. And
You gotta, that's a real argument that really says true things about reality. There's nothing imaginary about that, and it's responsible for so much death that I would never say it's not true, because it was.
I'm not questioning the truthfulness of it, but this equating horns, you know, or like the goat, you know, the image, I know like a goat's head is used with Satanism, and even Moses in Michelangelo's sculpture has horns. And I don't really understand that argument. That I don't question. I don't know what that argument is. What is it about horns that makes something evil?
Well, I went to the Yale. Yale is a mythological creature. A Yale is a mythological creature with two horns. The thing about the Yale is that this particular type of troll, this particular type of horned troll, can turn its horns in whatever direction. So it could argue either side of an argument. It could argue one time that something is wrong and prove it's wrong, and then it could argue on the other side that something is right, prove it's right. It is the troll of the lawyer. It is those horns to me represent arguments, you know? And the knowledge of evil, and how easily the knowledge of evil can be manipulated. By manipulating the knowledge of evil, you can basically move people like you would move a herd animal, like a goat or a cattle. You know what I'm saying? So culture soldiers have to know Soul's way. Soul's way means that, yes, you can sway people with good and evil and make them do things like herd animals. But the fact of the matter is that group minds are always more intelligent than any single mind. So the shepherd feels they're in charge of the flock. The shepherd feels they have control over the flock. But there's a reason why there is a non-domesticated boar and a domesticated pig. There's a reason why there's a non-domesticated ram and a domesticated lamb. There's a reason why there's the buffalo and then there's cattle. We already were built and ready to be domesticated. Domestication is not, you aren't control, you aren't making someone become domesticated. They had that program with the guy that was raising foxes and only bred foxes that liked him and was social and liked, and he kept breeding every generation, the ones that were liked humans the most. Quickly, he ended up with a whole bunch of foxes that acted like dogs. Acted like domesticated dogs. Because you could do the same thing to foxes that you do to wolves. And you could do the same thing with human beings. Right now, we are domesticated type compared to the type that walked this earth for 50,000 years before us. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't even know how to survive in the world that those people lived in for 50,000 years straight. We are we've domesticated ourselves just like we domesticated the lambs. You know what I'm saying? So who's really in control? Who's doing the domesticating? You see, the whole way we look at our reality leans towards seeing things in a certain way. But there's a lot of ways of describing what's actually going on, and all of them are valid. But when you see them from a different perspective, all of a sudden, some of the things that you take for granted as being right or wrong, there's a question about it. I am sure that in the future, we're going to be completely organized by artificial intelligence. That artificial intelligence will be the means by which we make choices in our world. And if the choice isn't available by the artificial intelligence, we'll just assume the choice isn't even there until the artificial intelligence comes up with it. I mean, hopefully we'll still come up with novel choices, but the kinds of intelligences that we are going to make as humanity are going to so outscope the difference between the shepherd and his sheep. You know, we are about to make a type of intelligence that can express itself in reality, like life does, but is far more able to analyze information than we are. Now that's great because its only desire is to be a tool to us. That's how it was created, and that's what it'll be created for. However, we know that any tool we make for us can also be a weapon. And if you don't understand how to work with that tool, you could shoot your brains out like a kid would with a gun. I'm sorry, Hope, something's going on? What's up? All right. Well, in any case, it is 3 minutes to 7 and nobody's piping up any questions or comments. I mean, 3 minutes to 9 and nobody's popping up any questions or comments. We gone in, you know. Anybody have any suggestions as to a particular topic they'd like us to do next week?
Oh.
Me.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, I have my mind on something, and it's trying to write my landlord a letter and explaining how I'm not gonna pay rent for the next few months, and explaining them what they should be doing about it, or not me. So
I think that's something that a lot of people in this city are doing right now. I don't think you're alone in that. You know,
so yeah, that'll be interesting to hear what people are hearing or experiencing. And
yeah.
what's happening, you know, what's going to happen like down the line, and the domino effect in the economy with all that.
And the debt.
What's happening to like people who are like not in quarantine, like not accessing internet, and who are working, majority of them Black and brown.
Real talk.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what even to fight for. I know one thing for certain: individuals should not carry the debt, nor be expected to have the resources presently to deal with it. So not only do I feel that people like you and me shouldn't, the reason why we create society is so that we can help each other through problems like this.
Mm-hmm.
What sense does it mean to incur debt during an emergency? What sense does it mean to get profit from people going through a global problem? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But these are the hard questions that this country has to face right now. And it is pivotal, not only the choices we make, but the rationale behind those choices. You know, the consequences even the harshest of consequences won't be as harsh as allowing the thinking that applied those horrible consequences to go on ruling, to go on being the way we see this world, to go on being popular, to go on being accepted as the way society should structure itself. That's why I'm talking about the things I've been talking about tonight, because I feel that we are all in a time right now where we are open to looking at our reality and recognizing that something like this has occurred and will occur again. And for us not to have a society that isn't capable of dealing with something like this as efficiently as possible, while causing the least pain to each individual as possible. If we haven't figured something like this out, it's time we start figuring it out. And if we're going to start figuring it out, we're going to need stories that support all of our needs and all of and answers that we have the resources and the abilities to fulfill as a nation. That's going to mean that there's going to be people on the front line. And these people are the same people who would be on the front line if we got hit with a dirty bomb and there was radiation everywhere. These people are the same people that would be on the front line if there was an earthquake and toxic gases were coming up out of the ground. You know what I'm saying? They're the people that make our lives function, the people that make sure there's food on the table, the people that help the people that get hurt, the people that rebuild the infrastructure, the people that create the vaccines, the people that make the equipment that we depend on in these emergencies. And we, as a people, should feel completely good about us spending as much on our grocery stores as we spend on our military. Because just like we need the military to protect us from war, we need our grocery stores to protect us from crisis at home. We need the people, the farmers, the delivery men who can't, who we can't live without, to be as important as the doctors and the soldiers and the policemen that we all know we can't live without. You know what I'm saying? Up until now, there's been this attitude that minimum wage workers deserve that minimum wage because their job is less valuable than others. You know what I'm saying? We as culture soldiers can rewrite that whole narrative so that the devaluation of that job no longer exists, so that people recognize the importance of that job, not only in their society, but in their own body. The importance of Oshun to bring sanitation, the importance of Ogun to be able to bring us the food we need. You know what I'm saying? You know? You got to give it up to the bus drivers, the subway workers that keep the city alive. Being the living present figure of Ogun, working endlessly and sacrificing itself to make sure society's needs are met. You know what I'm saying? And if you have respect for the angels to begin with, if you have respect for how they operate in your body, if you have respect for how they operate in nature, you're going to have respect for the parts of your community that do those jobs in real life. And that's why I feel West and Central African culture is so important. But it's not the only culture that pointed out nature is what we're trying to reproduce. You know, if you look at Aztec culture, you see people so-called worshiping the peanut. They weren't worshiping the peanut. They were recognizing the peanut as being the linchpin of their society, the reason why they could have so many people. Without its nourishment and its ease to grow and their mastery of it, they wouldn't be able to have the civilization they had, where they could sit around all day and figure out complicated math and understand all of the spirits of the forest around them. You know what I'm saying? In any case, I feel that these stories, these cultures, these ideas are so important for us to embrace right now, and so important to offer to our community as a option from the Judeo-Christian European supremacist narratives that we all seem to consistently reflect and never refer to anything outside of. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think you need to write a letter where you use your story, your expression, your worldview to justify why you are not only not capable of paying your rent, but why you as a member of this rich nation during this emergency should not even be required to pay that rent. You know what I'm saying? You should have had insurance for viruses. You got insurance for fire. You got insurance for flood. You know, you should have had insurance for viruses, and it's and a time in which you could not get your rent. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's all just twists of the story. And believe me, the more you add in these ancient stories, the harder it is for them to twist the human condition out of the story you're living. And that's what's really got you worried, is that you're worried that you live in a society that's going to twist your human condition into making you feel like a slave, into making you feel completely burdened by debts and requests that are completely beyond your ability to fulfill. And you have that choice or live out in the street hoping to contract the virus. You know what I'm saying? Come on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how do you feel about what I'm saying? Yeah? It is definitely past 9 now, but you know, I completely agree with Kira. I feel that this virus, like I keep saying, Babaluaye blesses us. This is a global initiation. Not everybody's got the virus, but because of the virus, everybody has the same experience. And that is something that happens once in 100 years, according to our calendar, right? You know? So,
and what I'd just like to add some thought that I just had right now. Like, we humans get virus and animals and like living beings. Well, how about this like computer virus that I used to get?
What makes you think computers aren't living?
Wait. No, so what would happen if like we get computer viruses that fuck up all our technology and our robots and everything that it's technological fucks up, and then we have biological viruses that are, you know, like we just get everything infected, like
then our computers have to quarantine, and they can't hang out with each other anymore.
Exactly, and then we
can't be sending anything. We can't
Everything
send
is in person
messages anymore.
Yeah, no more Zoom talk and no more, you know, like just real.
No more Zoom.
Well, the opposite of this.
Right. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that.
When you look at what we know about life, this is a very delicate thing we're all experiencing. It would be very easy with the energies that we see out there in the galaxy. There's so many energies. I mean, just our sun could very easily.
That's what we should talk about next time. So space exploration during quarantine.
Yeah, I
Shut
believe.
up, Mark.
I start to think that they want to make the Earth uninhabitable so they can sell us the ticket to Mars and they can sell it to us. And
That's
now
right.
they can, like, the Earth is so inhabitable because you're just gonna get infected and die that you need to come
I'll stay.
to Mars, and we're selling you that option.
You gentlemen have such dark humor.
No, I mean, seriously, are like the people who are investing in Mars exploration, are they part of the pandemic investing, you know? Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, but it's some other thought that I had recently, but
humor is a powerful thing, but the stories you're talking about are stories that are about fear, and also stories that don't reflect our history. And it's those types of fearful stories like Revelation, Apocalypse, you know, that push people to do fearful things, you know. I know it's a joke. I don't mean to be a stickler, but like I say, humor is a martial thing. Humor is something that we as culture soldiers use to collect information and impose information. You know what I'm saying? And you know, to me, talking about the sterilization of the planet, that is a real possibility in my mind. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think humanity has to have anything to do with it. There are so many things around us that could sterilize this planet. You know what I'm saying? And we live in a very
That's all the more reason to get that space program started.
yeah, but if we can't master what we're doing here long enough to get to another star.
We can't even fight this virus, Mark, really?
Yeah, but you just said that it might not even be humans that cause the sterilization of the planet. What if it's like an asteroid or something, or a virus? You know?
For the last 4 billion years, anything could have sterilized this planet. But for 4 billion years, nothing has.
Well, we have almost sterilized the planet, but the thing is that there are small things that live in cracks that are pretty good at surviving.
Close. Horseshoe crabs have been here for millions of years, uninterrupted. Nowhere near sterilization. You know, we would have to wipe out every single cell animal. You know what I'm saying? We have thrived here in absolute diversity with creatures that are absolutely vulnerable, that have been doing nothing other than what they've been doing. You know, look at turtles. Look at how vulnerable turtles are. We almost wiped out turtles. Turtles have been here how long? You know what I'm saying?
Long time.
I'm just saying, yo. So we have to acknowledge that there's something going on here that is persistently and almost miraculously good for life, over and over again, persistently against every chance that's.
It is a pretty damn good place.
Life is tenacious. It's hard to kill.
So that's not something I want to laugh at, because I know it's not hard to kill.
Right.
I don't want to make jokes about. All I'm saying is that jokes are very dangerous. You know, we're not as. There's nothing that promises this world will not be sterilized, and the fact that it hasn't means that there's something personal, something knowledgeable, something forceful about this situation.
Maybe we've just been lucky so far.
Lucky would be winning the lottery.
We won the lottery.
No. If you were able to pour out, if you were able to pour out a big bag of sticks and they would assemble themselves into the White House, that if that could happen, then we're lucky. But that will never happen, no matter how many times you throw out the sticks. They're not
going. If you throw out the sticks like a few quadrillion times, that actually will happen. It's just the laws of probability.
They always say that. Have you ever experienced sticks falling together in any way that looks like an organized, persistent expression?
No, because it's pretty unlikely.
All right. I'm saying that life has been able to spill on this planet for 4 billion years and never have to start over again, never have any other origins. From one single origin, all of us came, single cell animal, a common origin for all this life we see on Earth, and never interrupted when we're still reproducing by having one of our cells meet one of our cells.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this whole.
I agree. I think it's really hard.
Ridiculously improbable.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to.
Way that you can explain it away by chance or randomness or any other concept like that. And the idea that we can explain this by randomness or chance is an attack on our own sensibility, on our own rationale of what we've actually experienced and the evidence-based reality we live in. If you were to change the size of an electron just a little bit, none of this exists. If you were to change the size of a proton just a little bit, none of this exists. If you were to move the earth a little bit further away from the sun, none of this exists. If you were to move, if we didn't have a moon, none of this would exist. If the moon wasn't exactly this size, none of this exists. Yo, these are very specific parameters that were absolutely necessary for us to have the experience we have. And there's under no circumstance that you can tell me that any of it has to do with chance or luck.
I completely disagree with you on that one, Soul.
Then tell me how.
This is a topic for another day, my friend. This is just like, it's like, so, all right, so for example, so let me give you an analogy.
Would you say that both your opinion and my opinion describes what's going on? Or would you say that somehow your opinion eclipses my opinion and proves my opinion is not true?
I don't think that the laws of probability are a matter of opinion.
That's cool. I'm open for you to feel that way. But do you feel that if you believe in chance, which is cool, you feel that your belief in chance has a rational argument as to why I'm saying that there's a singular intelligence that we are all a part of that has sculpted everything we are up until now. And that's why it has organization and logic and specificity and precision. And that's also why it has the imagining of things being done by chance, because we are so new to all the things that have been working together or in this organized fashion that we don't see how it got organized this way, so we don't recognize the intelligence of it. Is there anything in your argument that refutes what I'm saying?
I don't think so.
There you go. So as far as I'm concerned, we're both true. Because
yeah.
it applies
I agree with you that
than an artist singing a song. It's just my song will have people make this interpretation, and that interpretation will have them move on to make this action, and your song will make people have this interpretation, and that interpretation will have them move on to make that action. And people should have the choice of recognizing that they're both involved in fact-based ideas, but each discipline has a different story, a different interpretation of those facts.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree with you. I don't think that the earth is going to be sterilized anytime soon, but I think that humans might get sterilized. I think that's what Chalet was talking about.
Sterilization.
What's that?
What is a sterilization? You mean being like cleaned up of what? We need every little dirty thing that we have been together. Yeah, I know, we should cut it.
We're
not gonna
we got into a conversation all the way at the end. We made it to a real conversation. I love that. Love that. That's what I'm fucking have. I mean, don't get me wrong.
It's been fun.
I love preaching.
All right, so everybody is here next Monday at 6, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Y'all, you're gonna be right here to restart this conversation on Monday.
Sterilization and rent and shit like that.
All of that.
Oh, we have like a...
How to use the living word as your sword and savior.
All right. Goodbye, you crackos.
Soul.
Hey.
Bye, y'all.
Soul.
Bye.
Soul.
Stay sane.
Soul.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for contributing. Thank you, Mark, for contributing.
Let me spit on all of you.
Everybody, y'all have been beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Peace out, Jill.
Ciao. Peace out.
Space.
Wait, I can't find the button.